South Wales can be involved in these new areas that will ultimately provide better outcomes and support veterans and advocates. Every year, about 5,000 people transition from the Australian Defence Force, many of who reside in New South Wales. These younger veterans are facing the challenges of finding jobs and support networks. Unlike previous generations, these younger veterans will not find well-paying government jobs with a decent pension scheme. The reality is that our economy is not growing, and only sectors that have decent paying jobs are in the mining and banking sectors. Even those sectors have seen volatility and will continue to do so. Even a mining job has problems. Does a veteran who spent most of their career away from the family want to spend time away when they get a fly-in, fly-out job in the mines? They would prefer to work closer to home. The casualisation of the workforce has also created issues for veterans, and we have increased instability in the job sector. This then creates issues within the family of that veteran. So many of those leaving the ADF today need our support. RSL New South Wales is interested in supporting veterans and veteran-owned businesses. We are in a position where we can provide support to these veterans and support their businesses to get off the ground. We need to look at how we can do this better. Whilst we welcome veteran employment programs run by the New South Wales and federal government, the largest employer of Australia is small business. We should be doing what we can to support veteran businesses. Veterans attain unique skills during their military training, which are transferable to the private sector. Companies such as Qantas and John Holland Construction were started by veterans. There are now thousands of veteran-owned businesses that are doing great things locally, regionally, nationally and internationally. We need to look into ways that we can better support the veterans and how they work today. We should be doing more to help them. Our membership is getting older. Many sub-branches have stated that they are struggling to meet because they have no new members and no one wanting to step up and help. We need to accept the modern realities of how people engage with the League. Some may say, let's just wait for the younger veteran to become our age and then they'll join us, just like we did. Well, most of us could retire in our 50s. Today, veterans need to work until they're almost 70, and many of them are looking to work beyond that. Is it a monthly meeting on a weekday, a weeknight or a weekend the best way to have a meeting? Does it need to be so formal? Should it be a barbecue or a coffee catch-up? Perhaps we can give everyone leaving the ADF automatic membership and then encourage them to reach out to their local sub-branch. We need to have a look at what we've been doing, being in the member and what a member means and what it should look like in 2020 and beyond. Our organisation was started in 1916 by veterans who wanted to give, not take. They got together to put a hat around and raise money for those veterans that needed it most. They joined the League to help others who were veterans. We have a large number of volunteers enjoying helping in the League. For many communities, the League has become an important institution, a pillar, a symbol of mateship and guardians of the eternal flame. RSL New South Wales should be one league, not 300-odd individual leagues. We are all members of the League and should work as one. We want to strengthen sub-branch committees and trustees in the same way as the board. Your board has worked hard to ensure we are compliant with the legislation and regulations set out by the government and the regulators. Not only are we legally responsible, but you are as well. Seemingly harmless conflicts of interest in many branches expose our members and trustees to shocking risks, and we need to protect them. At the same time, we have legal obligations to ensure all charitable money is spent on our charitable purpose. Sadly, we are investigating sub-branches and individuals who have allegedly done the wrong thing. We need to ensure that our organisation is operating legally and morally to help veterans and their families. We have many sub-branches that due to rapid increases in Sydney property prices have ended up with multi-million-dollar assets. We need to ensure that these sub-branches are assisted in complying with the law in doing the right thing. I generally believe many of them are. We are all volunteers and trying to do the right thing. But being a volunteer does not, under the law, entitle us to fall asleep and take our hands off the wheel. The courts will come down hard on anyone who is a trustee or an executive of a sub-branch if an illegal act is done. Lack of skill or education or training, or the fact that you are a veteran, is no excuse. We're all liable. We need to come together as one. We need to focus on our core mission, and that is to support veterans and their families. Together as one league, we can support more veterans and families. Most of you do the right thing, and for that we are grateful. People understandably don't like change, but we need change when it's for the right reason. And fortunately, this time members are shaping our changes. My father, World War II veteran, was a life member of the League. My brother was a member of the League. My son and son-in-law are members of the League. My wife, daughter, granddaughter and mother are a part of the League. The League is a big part of my DNA. I'm passionate about the League and I want it to last well beyond my lifetime. When I was first elected to State Council in 2014, I advocated for greater transparency, greater accountability and higher integrity. I stand here today and say that we've come a long way in those 5 years, but we still have a way to go yet. Delegates, it's your opportunity to be on the right side of history. It is your choice to be a part of this reform. It is you who can make sure that the League continues to be the voice of veterans and their families across this great state of ours. Tomorrow you'll have an opportunity to progress the League and ensure our organisation is here to support future generations of veterans in your local communities. I trust you will make the right choice. I thank you all for coming, and lest we forget.
Well, thank you, Ray, for your report. I'd now ask the board and Ray to please take seats on the stage. Well, there you have it, the board. Now, Ray will be answering some submitted questions, and following those, we will have questions from the floor, and those microphones that I referred to earlier will be positioned around the hall. Ray, over to you for the submitted questions.
First off, I'll introduce the board. Not sitting here, it's written in here. Got Sandra Lampkin, Philip Chin, Brian Slattery, John Hutchison, Sophie Ray, Jonathan Tuckfield, David Bell and Philip Bridie. I think everybody knows the board. First question, does the membership lose control of the League through the proposed constitution? No. Member control is greatly enhanced. Members will directly elect the President and service members. Service members' positions remain the majority on the board. Power to amend the constitution remains with State Congress. District councils have the authority to amend and approve SOPs. Additional powers to call an EGM through not less than 2/3 of District President's Council, at least 10% of service members, or at least 75 sub-branches. Criticism around the removal of clause 14.1a. This is replaced with 7.1 of the proposed constitution, saying this constitution and any provision in this constitution may only be amended, repealed or replaced by a special resolution of delegates present and entitles to vote at a general meeting. Special resolution means resolution passed by a greater than 2/3 majority of persons present, in person or by proxy, and entitled to vote. How can the proposed constitution be a contract? A constitution of an entity like RSL New South Wales applies just like a contract. It binds the entity and its members to follow the terms of the constitution as if it were a contract. This is the case with RSL New South Wales constitution. When a member joins the RSL New South Wales or a sub-branch, they accept the charter. They are basically agreeing to be bound by terms set out in the RSL New South Wales Constitution as a contract. Because the sub-branches are unincorporated associations and not legal bodies, it is the individuals which form the unincorporated sub-branch. That is, each of the members, and in particular the executives who govern and control the operations of a sub-branch, who are agreeing on behalf of the sub-branch, to the sub-branch being bound by the Constitution. Why appoint 2 independent directors when the Act only requires a minimum of 1? Over 70 nominations for the positions indicated is a high level of support for the League outside the membership base. Choosing 2 independent directors gave the board access to broader skill set. It also creates even greater independent governance controls. What is the update on the casual vacancy for State President? Would need to be conducted under the one member, one vote process. There is a board election in 2020. Feedback from the District Council Forum in September was that the cost and inconvenience was not justified. The current situation will remain until the election of a new board. Service members will have the opportunity to elect the State President as part of the board election in 2020. How will the 2020 board election be conducted? In accordance with the Act, it must be one member, one vote. This applies to all service members. The CEO has already approached the Australian Electoral Commission. The AEC has suspended fee-for-service activity and therefore cannot conduct the board election for RSL New South Wales. The CEO is currently sourcing alternatives with a view of issuing information to members as soon as possible. How can we vote for the proposed constitution if the SOPs are not finished? Bylaws and regulations will remain till December 1. SOPs are practical guides to help run a sub-branch and a district council. Drafts of the SOPs have been made available on the RSL New South Wales website. The current DC presidents will have the opportunity to review, amend and approve the content of the SOPs. They will convene prior to 1 December to do so. The board will also convene to approve the SOPs so that they can take effect with the proposed constitution. With the result of feedback from Constitution Consultative Group and the DC7, bylaws are prescriptive and SOPs give a practical guidance and flexibility where possible to reflect what happens on the ground at sub-branches. They were the questions that were sent in prior Congress. I'll now call from questions from the floor. I'll hand back over to the MC, Greg.
Well, thank you very much, Ray, for responding to those submitted questions. Delegates and alternates, this is now your opportunity to ask questions of the board. As I indicated earlier, there will be microphones placed around the hall. They will be numbered, and I will call upon the number. If you would then, as asked before, please identify your name, your sub-branch or district council that you're representing, and then follow that, of course, with your question. So have we got a question at this early stage? I'm sure there'll be some questions for the board. We've had some submitted questions. You've heard those. Did they fully answer your queries, or do we have any? Please, if you are at a microphone, raise your hand. I can't see anybody indicating. Is there somebody at number 4? At microphone number 4, over to you. Thank you.
Good morning. David Ingram from Windsor.
Yeah, once you've checked that, it will be switched on by the desk, so it should be operating. Let's just check that. Now operational, number 4. Thank you.
No. Sorry about that. David Ingram from Windsor sub-branch. Mr. President.
No, if you could speak, we did hear you blow into it, so I'm sure if you're speaking. Oh no, this time it's not operating.
Hello?
Yes, now it is.
Is that good?
More volume.
You can hear it blowing.
I think it's working.
All right, we'll switch that across to number 5. It did seem to be intermittent. We did hear some breath. Okay, number 5, bit of feedback, and if you approach it a little closer.
Hello?
There we are.
Can you hear me? Good. David Ingram from Windsor sub-branch. Mr. President, you mentioned during your speech there about membership, changing membership around and offering membership to all ADF members as they leave service. I think that's a brilliant idea. In fact, I believe we should make every member in New South Wales who has ever served in the ADF an automatic member. Why was that not considered in the Constitution?
That's a good point, and I can see that's going to be a motion for 2020 Congress.
Right, thank you for that question. I'm sure we'll get the microphones operating. I think we have somebody at number 6. Question from microphone 6, please.
Good morning, sir. Gordon Blair from South Hurstville. In the slides that you just showed, you mentioned reference to service members. Could you clarify that when you say service members, you also include life members and life subscribers?
Life subscribers are service members, and sorry, yeah, life members should have been mentioned, but we're all service members, yes. Correct that.
Thank you. I hope that answered the question. I think we have another question from microphone 6 as well.
Mr. President, Douglas Clark is my name. I'm the Secretary Trustee from Smithfield Sub-Branch. Whilst I perhaps might be jumping the gun a little bit, I've noticed that you said in answer to one of the questions that the bylaws will remain until the 1st of December, and then after that the SOPs supersede them. I notice on the motions that will be considered over the next couple of days, the majority of them relate to changes to bylaws. So if that is accepted by members, the changes, will they then be incorporated in the SOPs?
No, they reflect the current bylaws and regulations. So that'll be up to, depending on the vote tomorrow, I can't think who the sub-branch was, but that sub-branch who put those motions forward will be asked to withdraw them. If they don't, they'll be voted on and they'll stay in force until December 1.
Right, thank you. I think we have a question from microphone 5. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is John Fairless from the Collaroy Beach sub-branch. I've got a question about membership, and I was just thinking about what was said about getting ADF members, etc., and getting generational change within the membership. And a thought occurred to me, is there scope for a junior class of membership, that is, for persons under the age of 18?
They've got to serve. They've got to have served. I don't think there's too many 18-year-olds and below that are currently serving.
As I understand, we're permitted to have auxiliary members, for example.
Yep. They can join auxiliary or affiliate membership, yes.
However, the minimum age is 18.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I understand that, and what I'm suggesting is there's scope going forward to consider a junior class of membership.
Again, I can see that a motion from Coleroy next year for the Congress to vote on.
Thank you. I have a second question which regards trustees. There's been some conjecture with some people I've spoken to at the Congress already as to whether a president of a sub-branch can also be the trustee. My reading of 16.3 of the new constitution says all executive can be considered as nominating for trustee.
Except, I think, except president. No, that's right. So you're correct. Sorry, I'll stand corrected. You are correct.
Thank you.
Thank God I got some support here.
And I believe we have a question from number... Well, we've already had a few from number 6. Let's move around here. Question from microphone number 2 round here.
Tony. That's all right. Tony Diabetta from Cronulla Sub-Branch. The $25 a year membership fees, can the Treasurer just give us one reason why it is so high? A lot of our World War II veterans have problems making those payments.
Can I just say, membership fees are put to the members at Congress, and that was put last year. But any further questions on membership, you can, on finances and that with the Treasurer, can be done after lunch when he's got the stage. But membership fees are set by Congress each year. So the members set what you pay, not the board.
Thank you, delegates. We have a question from microphone number 3. Is that right? Then number 3, please.
Good morning, David Edmonds from Newcastle District Council. I just have a query about SAPs and their relationship with the new constitution. I noticed there's an SAP come out about finances, and in that SAP it says that under the new scheme that trustees will share bank accounts with RSL custodians when they sell their property. The money will be pooled in a bank account, and it will be shared half of the trustees of the sub-branch and half with RSL custodians, Private Limited. In the Constitution it says, it hasn't changed, in the Constitution it says that the trustees will still control the finances within their sub-branches even after sale. So what's it going to be? Is the SAP going to be overriding the Constitution, or is it, you say it's a guide, but why would you put out an SAP with that in it?
I believe you've misinterpreted the SOPs. So under current arrangements, sub-branch money is sub-branch money. Just because there's a sale, it doesn't. None of it goes to sub-branch. It goes to state branch. The only situation where the money is transferred to state branch is when the sub-branch is wound up. So that is the situation now, and that is the situation under the proposed constitution as well. So there isn't any automatic transfer with custodian. Custodian is there to facilitate and look after the property on behalf of the sub-branches. So that's how it's supposed to work, and that is how it works now, and that's under the proposed constitution, it's how it will work in the future.
Thank you for that. Yes, we have a question from microphone number 6. Thank you.
John Gregg. I'm the Vice President and Trustee of the Bundeena Sub-Branch. I'm one of the no voters that's been referred to, just to lay my cards on the table. And I'd just like, in I guess, defence of what's been said this morning, I'd just like to categorically assure members that no one on the Rockdale group has any private agenda or any other ulterior motive for being there. No one. We're really concerned about ensuring that you, the members, retain control of your organisation. It's been said this morning that 14.1A is replaced by 7.1, and that's quite correct, but the problem lies with 14.1B and 14.2C. And they are the ones that guaranteed you, as the members, to have the right to put forward constitution changes.
Excuse me just one moment. We do need to get directly to the nub of the question, please.
Well, my question would be to the President, does he acknowledge that where 14.1B and 14.2C guaranteed the members of getting their resolutions to Congress, that now the opportunity is actually not there?
Mr. President, I move that this debate is out of order. It is debating at the moment. It is a Q&A, not a debating session. The period for debate is when a motion is moved.
You are correct. It is a question and answer session. I'll leave that to the President to respond. Thank you.
Has been spoken from the floor from our delegate in Queanbeyan. Is there a seconder? Good. Do we discontinue the conversation between Bundeena and this is a question and answer time, not a statement made by you, John?
I think it just called for a little bit of defence, but let me ask a question then, and it's probably directed to the whole of the board. Has the board discussed or received any advice, and if so, what conclusions have they reached with respect to the impact on good governance and the board abiding by the provisions of the Constitution by the continued participation in board deliberations and voting of the 3 persons currently appointed by the board to fill vacancies on the board when such appointed directors are not included in the definitions of either of the 2 definitions of directors contained in the draft 2016 Constitution?
They're casual vacancies filled by as per the Constitution.
Well, the difficulty that you're facing, Mr. President, is that the 2 definitions do not include appointed directors. The definition of director simply states that they are elected directors and independent directors. And the definition of elected director is a service member elected by the members. So you've got the situation clearly in the Constitution where the appointed directors have not been yet elected by the members. They are therefore not elected directors. They remain essentially as appointed directors, and they're just not covered and called directors, nominated as directors in the Constitution. So does the board intend to continue to operate as a board with the vote of those 3?
Okay.
Perhaps the board...
I'll put it this way, John. I thank you for your comment, take it on board, and I'll personally get back to you with an answer. Thank you.
Well, they are the sorts of questions that the Rockdale Group have been very concerned with.
Thank you for those. As the acting president mentioned, he will take that on board and get back to you. We have a question from microphone number 2, followed by number 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ted Davies. I'm Secretary of the Narromine Sub-Branch in Central New South Wales. My question to the President is related to his comments on the amendments to the Constitution. You did use a figure of 2/3 majority to amend the Constitution, yet it's not listed. That figure is not listed in the document. And the reason I ask it, of course, is the last year 75% was put forward and that was soundly rejected. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Clarify that, 66.7. Pretty close.
And now the question from microphone number 5.
Hello, my name's Eric Roach. I'm the Secretary of Redfern RSL Sub-Branch. Good day to the President, Directors and the fine delegates that have attended here this year. My question is about membership. As was spoken by the President about membership and how and I don't like to say it, we have an ageing membership. As per the current Constitution, the responsibility of recruiting and membership in RSL New South Wales is the responsibility of the sub-branch. I haven't seen anything coming up in the new Constitution as of yet, and I may stand corrected. If we're talking about membership and we're talking about going ahead and coming together as one, when is State Branch going to stand up and start to assist with membership drives? Thank you.
Correct, Eric. It's a job for everyone, and State Branch is working on a project or a program to entice current serving people who are transitioning out of defence. Okay? If we can capture those in transitioning, not right at transitioning, but straight away, they don't want to. I know when people leave the Defence Force, they don't want to go straight into a situation of sub-branches or whatever organisation, other than to can't wait to get out the door and set up their life and their new job. But we're looking at a project with probably capturing the 5,500 to 6,000 members transitioning out of defence each year, hopefully looking at putting them on an unattached list, free membership for 5 years, and because current membership have got smartphones and everything else, we'll have their contact details, and in 12 months' time, we'll track them down and say, where are you? Have you moved to Dubbo yet? Or have you moved to the Nambucca Heads? Or have you moved down to Redfern? And chase up that way. As well as that, it's a job also that we can filter down to the sub-branches. And this has to go nationally, not just in New South Wales. And I'm talking to, and we've got one state president here with us today, but we are talking about that at national level so that we can capture everyone leaving defence, and hopefully they take over the job, as opposed to in 1916, in the early days of the RSL, when most people, or most members of the RSL, had black hair. Most members of today have got grey hair or no hair. So hopefully we can entice those younger people, yes. Thanks, Eric.
I hope we can entice those young people, but I'd just like to bring up a point on that, on the membership still, that we used to have an unattached list at State Branch, and it's been bulleted. So we're going to reinvent the wheel and go back and have an unattached list again. And my other concern to that is if they're unattached, then they don't really have voting rights through their sub-branches because they will not be members of sub-branches. Does it mean they vote through State Branch? Does State Branch hold meetings for unattached members?
The unattached member will have a vote for the board under the new Constitution, but we have got an unattached list, and our newest member is our CEO. He joined the other day. Without having to skull drag him there, he walked up there quite easily and joined the RSL. So the unattached list hasn't gone, it's still there.
Yeah, because I know that State Branch culled out the unattached list for a couple of years back. And my only concern is that unattached list, State Branch does not have regular meetings and does not get the people involved in and never have, on that unattached list. And I hope that you change that in the future.
The unattached list is there, and you're right. State Branch should be doing more to encourage them to transfer to branches in their area. But there are different reasons why people are on the unattached list. Don't want to get involved directly, and that's why I'm saying with the people transitioning out of the defence, rather than asking them straight away, go to the seminar and say, come and join Redfern or Ingleburn or whatever, come on the unattached list, settle down. They might travel around a bit or whatever, and then when they're ready to come on board and do what we do, hopefully that will work.
I look forward to seeing it come to fruition.
No way. Thanks, Eric.
Well, thank you very much for that. A question from microphone number 3, please.
Good morning. My name's Don Henry. I am from the Matraville sub-branch, Vice President and also Treasurer for my sins. The first question I was going to ask has actually been touched upon, and that is that the special resolution means a resolution passed by a greater than 2/3 majority, and that is in the definitions and so on of the draft constitution. I just point that out. But I'm just intrigued as to why it has to be 2/3 and not 75% majority, because, and I know it's been discussed before, however, as most of us I'm sure would be aware, a special resolution goes before a corporation is 75% majority, not 2/3. And we are, in the past, we've been saying how much we need to, I guess, adopt a corporate model to some extent, including matters of governance and so on and so forth. But 75% has always been, for a special resolution, the majority required for its passage. So that is something, that was a question I was going to ask. I do have another one because that was touched upon, but can I put that to you now?
Thank you for the question. I think I heard most of it. I'm an old gunner, so I have a bit of a problem in that area sometimes.
So was I.
The 2/3 majority is in the current constitution and has always been there. When we put the constitutional change in December, we changed it to 75, and we were roundly held down and said, why do we have to move it from 2/3 to 75%? So we listened to the members and we reduced it to 2/3 as is in the current constitution. If you want to change that, you can do that with a constitutional motion in 2020 or 2021 if you think that that's something that the members would accept.
I'm aware of that, but thank you. The other thing that I wanted to raise under Clause 6, limited liability, the liability of RSL New South Wales members is limited to amount not exceeding $10, which each RSL New South Wales member must contribute to the property of RSL New South Wales if RSL New South Wales is wound up. My question is why? Why would each member have to contribute $10 towards the winding up of RSL New South Wales for whatever reason, I presume because it may have got itself into financial strife? Why should the members have to then kick the can for $10?
I'm not exactly sure of the legal consequences, but it is part of the incorporation of an organisation that it has to have a figure. In general, as I understand it, the dollars that the members have would already be there. The members are not then asked to put another $10 in. It's talking about the assets that are left at the end and the money that has to represent $10 per member. So it's not physically putting your hand in your pocket for that $10.
That's not what this says, with due respect.
I would have to read it. I did have some difficulty with your question, but I would have to read that.
6.1 is
okay.
the...
I'd be happy to have a look at that and have a discussion with you about it, yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. We do have a question from microphone number 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Douglas Clark is my name once again. I'm the Secretary Trustee from Smithfield Sub-Branch. Chair, in all the questions that you answered on the screen, there was no mention made in regard to the Ashurst legal opinion, which the board accepts. Do I take it from that there's no recommendations or parts of the Ashurst legal opinion the board will be implementing?
I don't take what you're talking about, Doug, sorry. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a bit confused. But
I'm not a lawyer either, but but if you, perhaps we could take this on board and come back later, but if you read section 6, 1 in brackets, it says, and I haven't got the quote here in front of me, that the board just has total control of everything that everything that happens, and that delegates cannot, from the Congress, direct the board. So that's why I ask. I know you accept the Ashurst report. I'm quite happy to discuss it separately, but it clearly says that in that report. So I'm just asking, you accepted the report, so are you going to implement any part of it?
I'll take your question on board and I'll talk to our legal. Okay.
I'd just like to clarify that $10 amount that the members. It is limited to a total of $10 per member. That's why the $10 is in the Constitution.
Right, we have questions from microphone number 5. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Ari Havenar, President and Trustee at Miranda RSL, and I know that's a conflict of interest, but we can't get other people to do the job. I have in my hand 2 versions of a final draft of a constitution. When we talk about a constitution, which one are we talking about? The one currently in force, the new one proposed as a final draft at the 30th of August, or the one I've received since then? And the second part of the question is, why all this fuss about Afghanistan when we've got Iraqis, we've got Vietnam veterans, we've got people with peacekeepers and all sorts of other forms? Could you define a veteran for me, please?
A veteran is anyone who pulled on a uniform.
Thank you, that's cleared up a lot of problems.
A question from microphone number 1, please. And we'll work around the room from there. Right, that is now transferring to microphone number 2. If you'd identify yourself then, thank you.
Matt Helm, President, Queanbeyan Sub-Branch and Delegate. I'd like to make a few observations and make a short statement, if I could, please. I won't make a short statement, I'll enunciate. When the President gave his report, he then answered submitted questions. I feel that the Q&A that is going on at the moment, whether you vote yes or no later on, has been an orchestrated attack on the proposed constitution, and I requested the session be wound up.
Would anyone like to respond to that? This is a question and answer session. The submitted questions have obviously been responded to, and as one can clearly see, this is by no means orchestrated. I would encourage people to ask the questions. The sign of a great Congress is the involvement and the energy that we do see here tonight, or this morning, and it's by no means orchestrated that I'm aware. So as you can see, I'm trying to pick questions from around the room, and it's up to the President to respond to your statement.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt, for that. The question and answer is going to, I think, 10:40 or 10:30? 10:40. But I would remind delegates that it is a question and answer, not for statements, as Matt has mentioned, and questions that are relevant to the Congress, okay? So, and concerns that you and other delegates may have. So just please keep it short and sweet, questions and answers. And we've got another... Keep talking to one minute.
Another 10 to 15 minutes, and question from microphone number 3.
Yes, Dave Abbott, Secretary of Wagga. I have 2 questions, and they're actually to do with affiliates. Member voting rights. It clearly states in here that each service member, and that's only talking about board elections, obviously. However, it's been asked of me to find out what that means at a sub-branch level as well, and also the establishment of a sub-branch to do with executive appointments. In one case, it says that at sub-branch's discretion, at least one vice president who must be a service member, but then it states otherwhere, I've been told that it's also open to affiliates, that only the president must be a service member.
Affiliate members can hold any position except president or vice president. Oh. They can't vote on constitutional issues.
Right. Thank you very much.
Right, we now move...
And they can't be trustees.
Thank you for clarifying that. We now move to microphone number 6. Thank you.
John Gregg from Bundina Sub-Branch. I'm talking now on behalf of Bundina. We have a very active day club, and I understand on the 1st of December, if the Constitution does get up tomorrow, that all the regulations and bylaws will disappear. Can you enlighten us on what the situation currently is with the day clubs and how their controls are going to be continued and what their future is?
Day club and youth clubs remain as they are until sub-branches or delegates bring something to Congress.
Okay, there was some talk some time ago that they might move under, I think it was life care. So at the moment they're just staying exactly as they are. Will there be a set of SOPs or something in terms of their control, how we assist and support them?
In the prior strategic planning phase, they looked at RSL as across the board, including day clubs, auxiliaries and youth clubs. And that's still the case at the moment. There's no decision being made on any of those.
Okay.
And no decision will be made without the members knowing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And microphone number 5 for the next question.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, delegates. My name is Mike Fish. I'm the Secretary at Brooklyn Sub-Branch. Mr. President, our sub-branch submitted 9 questions on notice for Congress, but you didn't address any of them. I'm wondering why that is, and I have another subsequent question to this, please.
I will confirm, but I think they were answered before Congress? No?
No, sir. No, sir.
Some are financial questions and they'll be dealt with after lunch. Okay, they will be dealt with after lunch.
Okay, but there are other questions as well.
I'll take it on notice, and I know that our scribe's taken it all down there, and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
That's from Brooklyn, right?
That's right.
Yep.
The other one I would like to address at the moment is, as well as the Act, does the board accept that it is also fully accountable to the general membership of the New South Wales? If not, why not? And if so, why is that not included in the draft constitution?
Sorry, can you repeat?
As well as the Act, does the board accept that it's also fully accountable to the general membership of the RSL New South Wales? If not, why not? And if so, why is this not clearly stated in the Constitution?
We are, by virtue of the Constitution, responsible.
It does not state that in the Constitution. It's
Well,
mentioned.
I suppose if we put everything into the Constitution, it'd be a long document. We are, by virtue of the Constitution, by the members, that we are responsible.
Mr. President, you mention it in the board charter, a
Yes.
document that was put out with any involvement of the membership, but that board charter isn't recognised in the Constitution either.
We've got a forcible undertaking with the ACNC, and a part of it is with that. Your answer, sorry, my answer to you.
Mr. President, may I suggest to you that it is paramount that the board is responsible to the general membership.
We are responsible to the general membership.
It's not stated in the Constitution. It is stated in the Charter, and the Charter is not even mentioned in the Constitution.
I'll take that on board and I'll get back to you for a further clarification.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I don't know what he's done.
Question from microphone number 2, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Ken Jones from Moama RSL Club. I have a question for flags. In the Constitution, we should have an area set aside what flags we can fly at a cenotaph. 6 months ago, we had a young girl in our town who rang the Shire. She was from the LGBTI, whatever they call themselves, and wanted to fly her flag at the cenotaph. Well, the councillor, the mayor, immediately handballed that over to me, and I rang the girl and I said, look, as far as we're concerned at the RSL, it's a sacred place. We have flags that fly there, and they are the only flags that are going to fly there. But when I rang headquarters New South Wales and asked them what the protocols were for these, the rainbow flag, all the rest of it, they didn't have a protocol. And this was, the answer I got was, it's up to the individual sub-branch. I honestly think there should be some uniformity put in place here, and the flags should be listed in the Constitution of what can be flown at a cenotaph, and that could include white ensign, red ensign, all those flags, but they should be put in there to take the heat off making decisions along these lines. Thank you.
Thanks for that, and I can see the District Council or the Council of the Council President or the Presidents of District Council adding that to the SOPs. Okay?
Thank you for that. We'll take a question from microphone number 3, then we'll take 2 from microphone number 6. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President, delegates. Richard Wills, or Dick Wills, from Ballina Sub-Branch. My question relates to sub-branch incorporation as written in the draft constitution. Mr. President, it makes reference to model sub-branch constitution rules. Will these rules be written as a model by RSL New South Wales? And if so, will a sub-branch have the ability to draft into those rules when they then incorporate and register their model branch constitution? In other words, will a sub-branch have the ability, as in accordance with the Incorporation Act currently, to take the model rules and write it to suit the demographics of the region in which the sub-branch resides?
As I understand it, the model constitution for an incorporated association, that as part of this whole process, each of the sub-branches who want to incorporate will have a model constitution or a constitutional model that will be the same. We can't have 100 sub-branches with widely differing constitutions. But basically the thing behind that model constitution is that it mirrors or agrees with the RSL New South Wales constitution. Can the members change individual things within their own incorporated association? We haven't dealt with that yet. I've had that question a couple of times, and I haven't really been able to answer it properly. But I think it would have, if there is a change to be made to it, it would have to be in conjunction with RSL New South Wales. It's a bit of a legal question, and if you need something a little bit more legal on that, we can get that for you.
Thank you, because what I'm referring to currently, sub-branches have the ability, with State Council approval, to write their own bylaws. Now, with the disappearance of bylaws, and if a sub-branch was to incorporate, there needs to be some facility that enables a sub-branch to have rules that are associated with them demographically and regionally.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that last little bit.
The current situation is that a sub-branch has the ability, with State Council approval, to have its own bylaws.
Yep.
They will disappear if the draft constitution is adopted.
Yep.
Then the sub-branches no longer have that ability. If they choose to incorporate, they need some facility that manages their regional demographics and location. That will not exist as is currently proposed.
Yep, I'm sorry, I'm having some difficulty understanding what you're saying. And it's the microphone system, it's not you. If the bylaws, if an individual sub-branch has bylaws that obviously will have to be cancelled when the time comes. But I would imagine that if you're an incorporated association, you would have your own SOPs, or you would have your SOPs that reflect what's in the overall SOPs.
Thank you. That's what I'm after, because it's not defined at this stage, but that would give us the ability to manage it, yes.
Yep.
Now, we are closing in rapidly towards the end of the question time. We have had a queue at microphone 6, so I'll take 2 from question 6. Please keep them short and give the opportunity for others to answer questions as well. Thanks. Ask questions.
Peter Hillman, Bronte Sub-Branch. What will be the process for ratification and approval of the SOP?
I think I mentioned before, the District Council Presidents will ratify the SOPs by December 1. And thereafter, sorry, not just then, thereafter.
Right, the second question from microphone 6.
Jenny Ross Henry from Tea Gardens. Mr. President, you said a while ago that auxiliaries, youth clubs and day clubs, no decisions have been made yet. This time last year, when the Women's Auxiliary were railroaded into dropping the word women, we were told that RSL Life Care were taking over the other day clubs, etc., and that this was moving forward for the League. I would ask you, because of the removal of the word women from RSL Women's Auxiliaries, how many auxiliaries in the state have closed, and how many hard-working ladies have you lost as our members for our fundraisers for our branches?
Actually, since last year, they've now got 16 male members of the auxiliaries. On top of that, one male member is now president of an auxiliary that was closing because they couldn't get a president. So I think what your question is that the membership in the auxiliary was declining rapidly because of positions could not be filled. From Congress last year and in the SOPs that are now out there, so auxiliaries will be able to survive, they will not have to fill 5 executive positions. They will have a committee and all of the men and women in the auxiliaries can be in that committee, and the sub-branch will be responsible, the sub-branch executive will be responsible, as the SOPs state, to select a coordinator.
I understand that, and we have discussed that with our continued name, Women's Auxiliary, as a subcommittee of our sub-branch. However, our ladies do not want to have to sit in with the men. They don't want the men to sit in with them. And as a coordinator between the two, we don't have anyone who will agree to join in with the other. They'll work with us and they'll work for us, but we don't have the manpower, neither them nor us, women power, person power. We don't have the people to appoint a coordinator who is going to come to a sub-branch meeting as well as an auxiliary meeting and coordinate between the two. And our Women's Auxiliary and sub-branch meet at the same time. So we've got to change the whole structure of tea gardens to comply with what you want us to do.
Can I just cut in there? Look, we're getting out of line here. Look, the thing is this, you don't need to have a meeting. You can have a get-together where your meetings used to be. You don't need to have minutes. All you do is you don't have a bank account. Your bank account is a sub-branch treasurer's responsibility. He's had that responsibility unknowingly for years and years, not knowing where the money has been going. And who gets the whack for that is the treasurer and the trustees of the sub-branch. One, you've never been auxiliary members, have never been members of the League. In this new constitution, if you have looked at the 3 classes of membership, auxiliary members are now members of the League. You don't have to have regular meetings. You can have regular get-togethers for camaraderie. Then you prepare for Poppy Day, Anzac Appeal and all the rest of it, or any other fundraising you do at Bunnings and that. Nothing changes other than this hopefully will be a survival thing for the future. We've taken members of the female members in the sub-branches since the 80s. And there's been no dramas there with the females in with the men. So I don't know why the women in a couple of auxiliaries, because the majority of the auxiliaries that I speak to, and I think everybody in this room knows who I'm married to, so I cop a fair bit, so I can tell you the auxiliaries are surviving, and I think the move last year that we've got 16 already and even got a politician who put his hand up. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Could you answer the question as to how many women's
sorry, you have had a very good
closed?
time. Thank you very much. If there are further issues to be taken, please raise them directly. We really have to move towards a closure of this question time. Question 1 from microphone 1, followed by microphone 3. And if there's anyone still standing...
Chairman,
yes, at number 5. And I'm afraid we'll have to end at that point. No, we'll start with number 1. Thank you. Starting with question 1. Microphone 1. Okay, still switching that to microphone 2, but the same questioner.
Mr. President, you alluded earlier to quite a lot of people with grey hair. Can I just emphasise the point that for the modern man now we call it Arctic blonde? The question really is, and you alluded to it earlier about defence members, can I just ask what is actually being done to reach out to existing defence members and those that potentially are going to be leaving in terms of what would attract them to come into this organisation? What is it that they would be looking for rather than, and I have to say, because it's bogged me down at times with politics and other things, what is it that would bring them into the organisation so that they can make that great contribution and bring our average age down as well?
As I mentioned in my report, we're going to change the way we meet and all that, but I just might, there's an avenue for me to actually acknowledge 3 sub-branches who are here. Nambucca, Barraville and Maxville. And they came at Christmas time last year with a project, and they've started off. They encouraged the businesses within those areas. It's a nice place to live up the far north coast, up New South Wales. And encouraged business owners there if they would employ a veteran. Those 3 sub-branches have been attending seminars, transitioning seminars since December last year, and presenting their perspective of saying, come and live in a nice part of New South Wales. You can find a job. Businesses up there are willing to look at and giving servicemen and women a first hit at the jobs, and come and have a look at our schools, and then hopefully when they settle in there, they become sub-branch members. Now that's only a little part. That's an initiative that the sub-branches are doing. And what I was saying in my presentation was that we all have to do something, and there's something that 3 sub-branches got together in that district up there, and from all reports, and I've spoken to 2 of them since yesterday, yesterday, not last night, and it's slowly getting there. They are attending the seminars to the stage that they asked to attend the first seminar and then maybe the second one. Now they're being invited to the seminars. So they're RSL, there might be sub-branches, but they represent RSL New South Wales. And if we mirror that across the state, as well as what my intentions is in relation to working with Defence of transitioning Defence Force members coming out of Defence and getting them on the unattached list. That's the sort of thing. And then we'll turn the grey-haired brigade into black hair again, mate. Yep. Thank you for your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Please keep the questions short. Number 3, microphone number 3.
Morning all. My name is Michael Ali. I'm from the Helensburgh RSL. I've been to the dentist yesterday, so I'll speak slowly so you can understand me. Your earlier speaker and your last speaker spoke about flags and increasing your membership. Perhaps one of the methods of doing that to make the RSL sub-branches more user-friendly by looking at putting up the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags somewhere on your flagpoles, bearing in mind currently there are over 1,000 Indigenous soldiers in the Australian Defence Force. Of them, I'd like to know how many sub-branches has any of those members. So if you're talking about getting more members, then the sub-branches need to change their approaches. Thank you.
I think you answered it all in one. Thank you for your statement.
Thank you. And now we move to microphone number 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. President, Keith Pratt, Penshurst, Vice President. My question is regarding delegates and alternate delegates. Currently, if an alternate delegate can only speak when the delegate leaves the room, why can't this be changed? That because of the rules and regulations have changed, the expertise in sub-branch is now shared, and to me it seems ridiculous that one has to leave the room for the other to speak. Everyone has each alternate experiences, and they should be allowed to speak with that other delegate in the room, providing whoever starts the speaking finishes it. And who would be the sheriffs for that? These delegates. I'm sure if 2 delegates from the same sub-branch got up and spoke, they'd be held down. Now that's a question, Mr. President, or am I foreshadowing a motion for the 220 Congress? Thank you. I'm sowing the seed.
Yes, I think you got the answer there by sign language. And this will have to be our, well, unless you keep it very, very short, we are well over time, which is a sign of a really involved Congress, and thank you. Microphone number 6, and if it's a short one, we'll come to number 5, and that will have to be it. Thank you.
Well, my name is Paul Griffiths. I'm president of the Bundeena sub-branch, and my question, I am the alternate delegate, so I may be held down within seconds. Give us a second there. Okay, we're going to be asked to vote on the Constitution tomorrow, where we've got SOPs that are still not completed, and you're going to give the district councils 4 weeks to vote on them and approve them. Okay, that's been the same all the way along with all the draft constitutions, limited time. But this morning from the floor, we've had, to my count already, 4 questions, Mr. President, that you are going to take on board. Are you going to give us an answer to those questions before we vote tomorrow? With that nodding of the head, does that mean yes? Okay, thank you.
Right, that was an affirmative from the Acting President. And our last question, thank you, microphone number 5.
Thank you, Chair. And Mr. President, my name's David Clark. I'm the Secretary at 5 Dock Sub-Branch. I'm also the WMDC President, and I'm their delegate today. I'm also a member of the almost famous now Rockdale Group. And my question relates to the SOPs, and I just want you to confirm whether it's right or it's wrong, but I think it involves misinformation, where we've been told quite categorically for some times that they're just guidelines for the sub-branches. And yet through the SOPs, they're dotted with things like sub-branch must, you will, you are to. They're quite directive in their approaches. And so my question is, are you using the fact that they're just guidelines to cover the things that sub-branches might find unpalatable, and using them as directions for things where you think the sub-branches might be protected by district council presidents and such? Thank you.
In answer to your question, David, there's no conspiracy theory. And there's nothing being held back. There are certain things in the SOPs...
To be honest, I don't think that answers the question. Well, I'm not suggesting a conspiracy theory. The question was about your view on the SOPs. Are they guidelines or are they directives? And I really don't see how a constitution can operate without bylaws or something directive in them.
They are guidelines. They are guidelines. The Secretary's newsletters for weeks and weeks and weeks now have explained exactly how they are, how they work, and how they're going to work in the future, how they're going to be updated, how they're going to be modified, and that will be by the District President's Council, which you at the moment are a part of.
But that's just a guideline, isn't it? That the District Council Presidents, you're not bound by that. That's just a guideline. I think in the SOPs it says that anything that's put... I don't want to get into a debate on the floor, but you know, there's clearly 2 sides to this, and you can hardly call it a guideline when you say that whatever's put forward by the District Council President sort of has some weight, when really it says in there that the board has an obligation to consider such matters. Now, they can consider, say, yeah, I consider it, and now I dismiss it. Is it a rule or is it a guideline? Yeah. It's got to be one or the other.
It is a guideline, and remember that we've got sub-branches from 10 or 15 members to 500 members, from $20 in the bank to $35 million in the bank. We have got to have SOPs that will guide the whole lot of those sub-branches. Some will react differently, and some will actually adopt different parts of the SOPs in the way they do business. Incorporation, for a start, is going to be a major change to people, to sub-branches that, as far as their operation under the SOPs. But they are meant to be a guideline.
Well, we'll be voting on them tomorrow, and so you'll get the members' opinion. But to me, it's very difficult to vote on something that's actually not presented to us yet. And anyone who votes for something that they haven't seen is... I can't hear what you're saying. Thank you.
Look, thank you very much for your questions and for your involvement today. We want to thank, please, the board, so Ray and the directors, thank you very much for responding. And if you would now like to leave the stage, thank you very much. Delegates, it's not time to leave yet. We do have a short presentation from the National Centre for Veterans Healthcare, and I'll be asking Alice Kang and Kirsty Chapman from NCVH to come up as soon as the directors have left the stage. Thank you. Following this very short presentation, there will, of course, be a break. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you would please welcome from the National Centre for Veterans Healthcare, Alice Kang and Kirsty Chapman. Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alice Kang, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Concord Hospital. And for many years now, I've also been the Veteran Liaison at Concord. I'm here today with my colleague, Kirsty Chapman, who is the Operations Manager for the NCVH, the National Centre for Veteran Healthcare. But first of all, I'd like to acknowledge all the delegates, many of whom I know today, and also to Ray James, who has so kindly given us an invitation to come and speak at Congress. And I thank him for his leadership and support for the NCVH. I guess many of you do know that Concord was built as a military hospital back at the beginning of the war, and we've been caring for veterans for all these years. I've been fortunate to have been at Concord for the last 4.5 decades caring for veterans, so this is quite passionate for me, this NCVH. This week marks Veteran Health Week, and I think it's a good segue to talk about NCVH because it's about mental well-being. And I think for many of you who are familiar with Concord, we were the leaders in veteran healthcare, built as a military hospital caring for veterans. And over those decades, the hospital will turn 80 in 2 years' time. And over the decades, we've been caring for veterans, even though it's now a public hospital. We've gone 360 degrees, and for a long while now, we've been listening to the dialogue that's been happening around Australia and in New South Wales about the need to do more for veterans with mental health issues. And it's no secret that mental health is it's a topic that's really we're struggling with out there. So Concord, as one of the leaders providing healthcare for our veterans, felt that it was important that we actually get together and have dialogue and actually come up with a new model of care for our veterans who are transitioning out, particularly from defence. We know very well that when they're in defence, they're looked after very well. But when they transition out, that's when they fall into that vacuum, and many of them struggle to even access health services. I think for those of us who work in the health system understand how difficult it is, but for those with mental health issues and struggling, it is even harder. So it was with that background that we actually got together a round table, and we had some key people who are providing care in the across the state to come together to discuss how is it the new model of care that we're going to be looking at. And we had people like Dame Maria Bashir, we had Soldier On, we had the RSL, we had people from Defence come together, and there's just to name a few, have come together to actually come up with a new model of care. The old model, which is treating just a veteran and not including the spouse, no longer works. So the new NCVH is about a new direction, about how we can actually work collaboratively together to actually look after the veteran in the centre, because we haven't really done that as well as we would have liked to. So the idea in this new service is that it's important for the young veterans who have transitioned out to have easy access to services and to so not make them jump through many hoops and hurdles to actually get to where they need to go, because it's difficult enough, particularly when you've got issues behind you and complex issues. It is often very difficult. So with that, we've come together and come up with a model which Kirsty will go into the details of, which I'd like to share with you, because it is going to be the next important service out there and you all need to know about it. Particularly, we know that whilst you're in the metropolitan area, you can access services reasonably well. In the regional areas, I think you all would agree with me that some services are virtually non-existent. So I'd like to share with you now the NCVH, so I'll hand over to Kirsty.
Thank you, Alice, and hello everyone. Thank you so much for having us here to talk about our service. Our vision is on the screen, and I'll just talk you through that quickly. We sat down, it's a lot of words I know, but that's as much as we could condense it to get the message across. So it's to be the leaders in the provision of comprehensive care to achieve optimal physical and mental wellbeing and quality of life for our veterans. And We wanted to put "and families" at the end, but it was just a few more words. So we just want you to know that when we say veterans, their family and care providers are very much wrapped up within that, and they're taken on the journey of recovery as well with the veteran. So Alice spoke about our history as a military hospital, but really, what is the NCVH? So it provides a comprehensive multidisciplinary approach to healthcare, and that means that you come to one location, and within that one location you are seen and treated by a team of specialists working together, not compartmentalised as is usually what happens, where you have one specialist here, no one's talking to the GP, no one's speaking to the psychologist, and there's all these lines of treatment without anyone collaborating. So what we do is we bring all of those specialists into the room together to develop one treatment goal to move forward. We're an outpatient service currently, and we're running a pilot that started in August. So what it means is that they will come to us and they will receive that care on an outpatient basis. So currently we don't have an inpatient service. So part of the multidisciplinary team, who is involved? So we've got 4 main medical specialties of rehabilitation medicine, drug health specialties. We have chronic pain services because there's a real gap out there for people with chronic pain issues. And we've also got psychiatry. In saying that, because we are a tertiary hospital in Sydney, if you come to us and we identify that you need more care with other medical specialists, we will link them into you where we are, so you can also get that as part of the approach. We have case managers who lead the veteran and their family through their care. We will be developing peer support, so the people that come to us will be able to have someone with lived experience guide them through the service. And a big part of that peer support is we also want a peer support worker who is a spouse to actually guide the veteran's spouse through the journey as well. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see that's our allied health team. So we have psychologists, physiotherapists, exercise physiologists, we have an occupational therapist, diversional therapist, dietetics, and a social worker. So you can imagine on Mondays when we have our big team meetings, we need quite a big room, but everyone gets in the room together and discusses goal planning for the veteran. So what makes you eligible for the service? So you have to have served in the Australian Defence Force. Currently, during our pilot service, you actually have to no longer be serving with the ADF, but you can be a reservist. We are working with the Defence Force to be able to look after patients who are currently serving, but that's our progression probably into next year once we've worked on our pilot a little bit further. You have to have a Medicare card. It's because we're a public hospital and it's a requirement that you have a Medicare card, but you don't have to have a DVA card to come to us. So we don't look at your restrictions and what your claims have been put through. You can come to us with your Medicare card and receive all care, regardless of whether you have a claim or not put through. We have had some people to come to us who haven't connected with DVA yet and do not have their white or gold card. So what we offer is we link them up with the advocacy service to start that process as well. So we're finding that we're a good way to actually link people back up with DVA if they haven't gone down that path or if they've stopped that journey for whatever reason. You need to be 17 years and older, and before you come to us and see us face to face, you have to have a GP referral. So what to expect? To be referred to the service, there is no wrong way to be referred to our service. You can call yourself, you can call for a friend or family member, a GP can refer, RSL can refer, ex-service organisations. So anyone can be linked in with our service, and from that moment you will be allocated a case manager. Now that case manager will then guide you through to getting a GP referral, explain the service, do assessments to make sure that you're suitable, and if you're not suitable for our service, we won't just say no and shut the door. Our case managers will actually link you up with the people that can help you. And then the case manager will undertake a set of assessments as well, just to talk to the veteran about their goals, what they want to achieve, whether we are a suitable service, and then the timeline to come and receive care. So as I said, the case managers are that one central point of contact. When we've gone out and spoken to the community, especially to GPs in the community, they find it very frustrating to have to link up to multiple different people. I'm sure you've all called a hospital before and been put through to 17 different departments until you find the right person. So our case managers, you're provided, or the veteran and the GP, anyone else is provided with their mobile phone number, and they are that one point of contact who, if they can't help you, they'll find out the answer. So it really helps with that navigation of healthcare. They coordinate with all of the stakeholders, as we said, and that includes the family and carers. So family and carers are invited to come and be part of the whole journey should the veteran want them to be. They can come and sit in on appointments. They can have separate appointments with our case managers and social workers or psychologists if they need to, and they are part of the journey. And then we coordinate the discharge as well through the case management process. So how long will treatment take? It depends on the availability and the complexity of the care. We've estimated about 6 to 8 weeks, but that can be longer if it needs to be. The veteran will be monitored and discussed at the meetings to make sure that we're progressing towards a discharge. And if you've been discharged from our service and sent back out to the community providers, if you do need to come back to our service, that's fine. You just need another referral, and then you can come back and we can see what else we need to do for you. We do understand that some aspects of care, especially for those who live more rurally and regionally, might need to stay with us for a bit longer. It might be easier for you to find a physiotherapist in your local area, but not be able to find a psychologist, for example. So we will maintain care with you until we find someone to hand you back over to in the community. So even though one aspect of your care with the NCVH might be shorter, you can stay on to receive that support, so we know that you're linked with someone in your community. So discharge planning starts from the moment that the veteran walks through the door. We look at SMART goals and we look to see how we can achieve those goals. And through part of that is linking up with community members. As I said, we want you to get back to your community. We want you to have social support and health support within your community so you can stay and be with your family or your work. So we will find links through ESOs, we'll find community health services, and then at the end of the time with us, we do a formal discharge process, and that's through telehealth or through the telephone. And that is with the veteran, their family, the NCVH and the GP all in the same room discussing the plan for discharge, so everyone knows what the plan is and how to progress further. This is a big aspect of what we're doing, telehealth. We recognise that in Concord, we're calling ourselves the National Centre for Veterans Healthcare. Not everyone can come and complete all of their care with us at Concord through to financial work commitments or family commitments. So you will be required to come to us for a short period of initial assessments, but we can send you back to your community and continue care through telehealth. At our end, we have a whiz-bang computer, but at the other end, all you need is a smartphone, a tablet or a laptop, and you can connect with the therapists at the NCVH. We have one current patient who's coming through us at the moment, who came to us for 2 weeks and then he moved to Melbourne, and he's receiving his care through telehealth from Melbourne, and that includes psychology sessions until we can link him up with someone in Melbourne and he gets to know the area. So his care is continuing even though he's a different state away. So at the moment we're going through the pilot evaluation, it's 12 months, and that's really to look at the service and assess it and make sure that we're growing it in the right direction for the bigger service that Alice will talk about. And that really tests the evaluation of the satisfaction with the veteran, with their family, with their GP and with our clinicians to help guide that pilot. So I'll just hand over back to Alice to talk about the redevelopment.
Okay, so how does it all tie in? At the moment, the National Centre for Veteran Health Care is in a temporary location at the hospital, and in 2021, we will be moving into the new build. And I'm pleased to say that the hospital is going through a $341 million redevelopment, and the National Centre for Veteran Health Care, if you can have a look at the screen, the red arrow, that's where it's going to be located. That's the artist's impression of what the new buildings will look like, and it'll be located in the middle finger of the building. And that building is actually going to be named after a former president, Rusty Priest. So it's going to be called, the building is going to be called the Rusty Priest Aged Care and Rehabilitation Centre, and the NCVH will be located within that building. We're very excited about it, and it's on target, and it's in 2021 where we will relocate into the new build. So, we can't call ourselves a National Centre for Veteran Health Care and provide services to those in the regional area if we don't provide accommodation. But I want to clarify that we are not about housing. So Fussell House, you will hear that very soon out in the media. The Fussell House is actually an accommodation for patients seeking receiving care at the NCVH, and the building will be completed in early 2020, probably around about March, and it will be providing hostel-like accommodation. So we're refurbishing this. It's just an artist's impression of what it will look like, and will provide accommodation with a kitchenette, with sitting areas, with rooms for different configurations for the family, for a two-bedroom and also single room, and also a children's play area, because we're very focused on keeping the family unit together. So it's it's likely that the veteran might want to travel from the regional areas with the partner and children, and stay at the Fussell House whilst they're receiving treatment together with the spouse, and also through the rehabilitation process. So it's important that we focus very much on the family. So just an artist's impression of what the single room looks like. And just very quickly, what's the new technology that we hope to bring into the NCVH? And this is very exciting. It is called virtual reality for treatment of PTSD. At the moment, it's not in Australia, but we are hoping to bring this new technology in soon, we hope. It's used in the US with the Veterans Affairs and also in the veteran hospitals, and it's developed by 2 professors in the US. Basically, what it means is that we're using virtual reality to actually create the scenario that actually caused the PTSD for the veteran, using very powerful graphic hardware and software, and to actually gradually, under control situation, bring the veteran down, desensitizing the veteran. And that's a very exciting project that we're working with Sydney University, but it's going to cost us. So I'll make no bones about it. I will be out there lobbying for support to actually bring this technology in, and hopefully sooner rather than later. And we hope to be able to share that with as many as possible. So in wrapping up, these are the key things in which the NCVH is built on: support, connection, the strength of our history as a leader in providing care for veterans, and well-being, because the rehabilitation journey is important, and it will be about exercise, it'll be about good nutrition, and it'll be about all that encompassed in the one centre. And the recovery journey could easily quite encompass providing, activities such as volunteering. The Kokoda Track Memorial Walkway, some of you may have heard about that. It's only adjacent to the hospital, so there's nothing to say that we can't involve as part of the rehab journey to getting them to volunteer with the school activities at the Kokoda Track Memorial. Teamwork, families, as I've said before, and building resilience in our younger veterans. So I'd like to wrap up here. So thank you for having Kirsty and myself, and I hope to be able to speak to some of you over lunch. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Alice and Kirsty. Just as a reminder, both Alice and Kirsty do have a stand, and if you'd like to follow up on any of that information, bearing in mind that the youngest veteran receiving treatment is 23, and I think the oldest is well into the 70s, so there's no age that you need to be concerned about. Please go and have a talk to them. They do have information packs if you'd like to follow up. We'll now break until, I know we're running a bit late, let's try for be back in our seats soon after 25 past, 11:25 if possible. Be back in your seat. We'll hear from the new RSL New South Wales Chief Executive Officer, Mr. John Black. During the break, you'll find the tea and coffee available in the hall, along with snacks on your tables. See you in about 15. Thank you. No, sorry. I just saw
That's where Greg Apple's sitting, that one. Yeah.
Delegates, if you could take your seats, please, and we'll resume Congress. I'll keep on asking.
Just make a shout. Someone took the dummy cards from the RSL money table. There's no money on it, so if they can give them back, that'd be great.
It's from the RSL table.
RSL money.
Money. RSL money.
So there's two dummy
Credit cards.
Yeah.
All right. You right doing that, Greg?
Sorry? No, I won't. No, sure. Delegates, if you would take your seats, please. We need to recommence. Now, as you're making your way to your seats, ladies and gentlemen, could I ask the person who was enticed by the money cards on the RSL money table to please return them? They are dummy cards. It may be in the form of a credit card, but they bear no value. So if you would please return them, they are for display purposes to RSL money. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We are about to commence the session. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure now to welcome the CEO, Mr. John Black, who will give you an overview of the strategic plan for the League. Mr. John Black.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Lots of energy in the room. But I need to say at the outset that my presentation will be quite brief today, and I think there's more important business with some respects to get to, but I'd like everyone to reflect on what I say today, because on Wednesday we've got a fantastic opportunity to drill down into the future of this great organisation, and that's what I hope to be able to convince you that we need to do. That's what I'm going to cover this morning. As it says there on the last point, that we'll do the Q&A on Wednesday, and as I said, I hope we'll be able to drill down. A little bit about me. I am the Johnny-come-lately, and certainly a lot of the technical discussion this morning means that I've got a lot to learn to support you as the CEO. In terms of my background, I was actually born in the UK, but please don't hold that against me, because I grew up in West Africa, Trangi, Narromine, and the last couple of years of school in Canberra. So I guess you'd call me a New South Wales person generally, but like everyone in the room, a very proud serviceman, 25 years in the Australian Army, and you can tell from my appearance, my decorum, and I guess that I'm so well house-trained that I was an artillery person. And you're very lucky to have me. Always on time, on target, reliable, regardless of weather, season or terrain. But I retired in 2005 after a terrific career of service. And I'd say that things that stick with me now, of course, of lifelong friendships and an ingrained sense of service. And that ties in so well to my new role as your CEO. That said, I think what I was able to learn in my Army career has enabled me to have the skills and knowledge to serve you as a CEO. That is, I'm one of the lucky ones that was able to fall into a number of roles that I think are very relevant in terms of my new responsibilities. Over the intervening years, I have been a chief executive of a very large water utility. I've set up and sold telecommunications companies. I've been a Director General or a Secretary of a government or two government departments, and most recently I was the Chief Executive of TAFE New South Wales, a large organisation in itself going through a considerable amount of reform, and I think the word key to remember there is about modernisation. I think my motivation, first and foremost though, in this role is about service. Obviously, a lot of my friends and the people I've met through the years of service, I have deep respect for and regard, and many of them have not been as fortunate as I have post that service. And it was great to hear the discussion this morning on the positive side about looking at the future, about how we can change the membership. And I'd like to think that I can play a very key role in supporting you in achieving that, and we'll cover that in this strategic direction. It is an iconic organisation, but I am frustrated, and I have to be terribly honest here. I'm very frustrated that in recent years I've been asked to join and lead other organisations involved with providing services to support veterans. And the question I ask myself is, what is the RSL doing? And that is something that is, I guess, sitting with me as I stand here now in developing this plan for you. I'm married, I've got two boys. My youngest one, 18, is a rifleman in the 6th Battalion, and I'm very proud of that. I thought I'd quickly cover the role of the CEO. And it appears that my slide's out of order here. I'm not in the infantry, I should have stopped. Okay, I'll let you dwell over those points on the slide there. These are clearly some of the points I was able to articulate to the selection panel to be standing here today. And I think it's very important that we all understand my role in supporting the organisation, and in particular the board, and for the membership obviously holding the board to account. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. You can see there on that second dot point about my accountability around performance, financial sustainability, regulatory compliance, which is a burden we have to endure in an organisation that is incorporated. And indeed, of course, the same principles, as I said this morning, apply to those unincorporated entities as well. Strategic plan implementation, I'd like to think that that will become my key focus in the not too distant future. Reputation, of the RSL and ensuring I'm supporting every single sub-branch, every single member in that, and what we can do to enhance the reputation we have, and it's been hard-earned over many years. Obviously the great team that I'm lucky enough to lead, in terms of the management team we have at Anzac House, and the value. And that's an interesting one for me, and I burden myself thinking about how do we increase the value of our organisation, what does that mean? My next slide, I don't want to dwell on for too long because it was buried deep in the website, but we have got it now connected to the Congress page, so you'll be able to find it because it's too detailed really to show on the slide, and that is about our organisation in Anzac House. It's, whilst I can measure my tenure so far in weeks, not even months, I was able to do some rapid realignment with the board's support to ensure that it's clear to members who does what in Anzac House and what rate of effort they provide. So it's not like your usual wiring diagram. I'm at the bottom, not the top. I see the most important parts of what we do in the Anzac House is providing services to members and of course to veterans. And we'd obviously like to make sure we get the right balance there. So our Veterans Support Organisation, which is dominated by RSL Defence Care and Veterans Sport Australia, and Members Support, and I think most members know Jeff O'Brien. He's what I call the General Management of Member Services, as well as your State Secretary. And he has a small team there, which is generally, as you can see, the rate of effort is supporting the wider membership, not Anzac House. And to support our organisation, both Anzac House and across all sub-branches, the roles that are, as I call here, support services, including the General Manager of Governance, Legal and Risk, who is also our General Counsel. And within that organisation is a role that has a critical relationship with the board, which is new to the RSL, of course, and that's the Company Secretary. It was interesting when you look at the enforceable undertakings that came out of the Bergen inquiry, it was one role that was specified, there was a requirement. And while some members might not have experienced the business world that has a company secretary, it's come about mainly because of the word governance and ensuring each of the instrumentalities in an organisation, the decision-making framework and the accountability is properly set up and established and monitored. So the company secretary has a particular role, has a unique role in the sense of relationship not only with me as the chief executive, but with your board. Next, that wasn't a direct report to me when I arrived a couple of weeks ago, but now is, and that's your Chief Financial Officer, and you will meet Nicole this afternoon. The Treasurer will introduce her. And Raj. Raj Nair is your General Manager for Support, Services and Development of the RSL. And his responsibilities include, for instance, the Hyde Park Inn, but more importantly, he's looking at the future about where we need to invest, where we need to provide support to you in making decisions at the sub-branch level on your future as well. So please, if you haven't met the executive team, they are here. So please introduce yourselves and they will do the same to you as well and say hello. And we'll be listening because we need to understand the organisation and what you're looking for from your executive team. It's a big investment that you make and we need to demonstrate to you the value that we provide. There's been questions sent to me already in relation to the organisation about the cost. They'll be addressed in the budget presentation this afternoon. Right. Meet strategic plan update. The first one I'd like to touch on, and the President mentioned this in his update this morning, is that's RSL National. We, as RSL New South Wales, I understand it, we have just returned to the table. And the President, and I share his view, is that we need to be at the table to influence what the RSL National is doing strategically. And the President has articulated on behalf of RSL New South Wales the important role that National plays in particularly influencing Commonwealth Government decisions. And it was really good to hear that last presentation around investment by the Commonwealth into veterans' healthcare. But I think there is many, many, many more things that can be done. But we need to articulate sensible arguments supported by facts that we can provide to national, and working with our state counterparts, pack a heavy punch to the government to understand that the veterans need to be listened to, and we need to undertake that influence. Obviously, the other thing I've learned very quickly is that brand, that proud badge that we wear, you can see on the screen, is owned by RSL National. And I think we need to do a lot more work around the brand, what we stand for and how we articulate that. Right, progress to date. I have learned that last financial year the board approved a very detailed consultation with the membership that involved surveys and presentations to understand what the membership wanted to see around the future of this great organisation. Those outcomes, I've been advised, have been provided through district councils down to sub-branches, so you would have seen that. I will recap some of the key outcomes shortly, and certainly on Wednesday, because there's a few things I don't quite understand in terms of that very important member feedback. However, from that feedback, the board has, as an interim step, approved in August 4 themes that I'll touch on shortly. And obviously, the board made the decision to employ myself with a key emphasis on developing and ensuring that we implement the strategic plan. Now, again, these slides will be available on the website, so please don't bury in the detail there, but just on the right-hand side is important. The left-hand side of the slide is all the questions that were done through that survey, and on the right, the interpretation of the outcomes from that survey. And it's really good to listen this morning. Some of the themes you can see here have resonated from the membership already. Clarify what we should do for members and determine what the RSL stands for to effectively advocate with one voice. Should the RSL organise itself to effectively deliver veterans' services and engage stakeholders? And I'm keen to explore with you about these veterans' services. Recruit new membership. Well, that came through like a thump this morning. Deliver consistent quality services across New South Wales. Measure the effectiveness of those services and improve them. Think collectively, but act locally. And having, as I said, mentioned working for TAFE New South Wales as the CEO, it was very clear to me, the further you exited north, south or west from Sydney, the closer its TAFE got to its community. And I suggest that would be similar with the RSL. And we've got to recognise that and recognise how we, perhaps in the wealthier areas, can support those that aren't so well in terms of supported financially, manpower, lady power and everything else. So that's something we need to think about, acting locally. More collaboration to ensure the organisation can be sustainable for 100 years. And I think the word collaboration is something I think we need to focus on. In considering what I'm about to present from the board's decision, the board took on board 4 principles that should underpin your strategy. And from what I've heard in the last several weeks as I've been your CEO, these are not inconsistent with what I've heard. We've got to fulfil the purpose, and I really think I haven't heard a lot of discussion on it, but I get very excited when I read the charitable objects in our new constitution or proposed constitution. That's what we're about. It really does set the tenor to what we are to do as a league and how we can work together to deliver those purposes. And the bottom right, of course, I think we've got a duty to respect our past. Whoops. Yeah. There's a mystery bug. who is it? I'll do a quick IA here. So the 4 principles are there, and the slide that you now see are from those principles, the strategic plan concept as presented to the board in August. I've got an asterisk next to the 2022 because I think that's far too short a horizon for us to have a plan for the future of this organisation. You'll also see here that those principles and themes from the outcomes of the survey have come through with the focus areas that the board, as I said, has approved. Remember the past, honour veterans and their families and provide camaraderie opportunities. Understand evolving areas of need, provide services and find ways to engage. RSL New South Wales advocates and represents veterans and their families, and building trust through transparency and sound management. The actions that the board has approved underneath each of those are areas where we need to develop, and I'll come to that now. Just to recap on the purpose of the strategic plan. On the last dot point, I'd bring your attention to align the budget and the work effort to achieve the vision that must be encapsulated in the plan and report progress to you, and so you can hold the board to account for delivering that plan. I think that's important for us. Now, where to now? Action 1 is complete, as I've just presented. What we need to do is incorporate the objects I mentioned in the Constitution. We need to review the vision to ensure that it aligns with those charitable objects. And I think the vision, when you look on the website at the moment, is a little, I guess, not focused enough on the future. And I think we need to work together to work out what is that vision, how we see ourselves 20, 30, 40 years from now as a league. We've got to incorporate those strategic pillars the board has approved, but we've got to turn them into distinct actions that can be measured. There's no point in having a mother statement in a strategic plan. It's something that, as I said, you've got to hold the board to account for, so it's got to be in a format you can see where we're heading and you can measure progress. If, for instance, if it's about increasing membership, well, let's prove where the members are increasing, where are they increasing, and where have we got problems that need to be fixed so we can report. I think there's something that must be in the strategic plan is to articulate the outcomes of each of those objectives so you know when you've reached them. And that is challenging to do. Point 8 is by December, I aim to seek the agreement of the board to undertake face-to-face communication with not only sub-branches but for the wider membership. And I'll be able to go through and get that direct feedback on what is proposed in the strategic plan. And following from that, we can look at presenting that final plan with the members' feedback to the board in June. We need to start implementation next financial year. This is urgent. So think about those points I've raised around articulating the vision, articulating distinct actions that have got to be undertaken, by when, with what resources, and then report back. So I think some other thoughts have come to my mind. The second point, we at Anzac House have already had discussions with the ACNC, but I think clarity is needed. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that camaraderie is a very, very important undertaking we do within the RSL that helps veterans transition. We look after each other going forward. We share experiences. We have people to talk to. That should be part of our charitable purpose and an allowable expense by the regulator. It's quite obvious because at some point, yes, we're members of a charity, but we're also veterans. And that's something that we must focus on. I hope the narrative that I hear on Wednesday is buoyant around the future and less time spent perhaps arguing over governance rules, but we can get on with ensuring we have a plan for the future. There's one thing, this is rapid, this is like a GPMG M60, this is just... Well, I can see it's going downhill rapidly. I've been told, John, don't say anything politically incorrect. But I can still hear from about 1980, 81, Sergeant Barry getting stuck into me because I didn't know the range of the GPMG M60. I hope that wasn't you. He told me it was a 1,200 metre round trip to pick up the gold teeth. You got it. So, sir, yeah, I do know how to use one, but I hope you haven't got one with you. All right. Now, listen, I am having some issues with my slides. It's just flicking over without me touching them. So, what I was going to show you was something from that survey that sort of contradicts what I've talked about because I need your help to resolve. Because from the members' point of view in the survey, the most important things were to provide claims support, advocacy, and commemoration. To provide support for transitioning veterans, current serving and people who've left the Defence Force, here we are. I didn't even press anything. Now you believe me. You can see in the centre red circle, that's where the membership said. But I am sensing from the membership, talking to people, is that support services like RSL Defence Care and many, many sub-branches providing across the state is where we need to invest. Because from my experience from leaving Defence and people perhaps younger than me, the number one thing is actually getting a job and feeling valued. And one of the impediments to getting a job is having your skills recognised. And I think we can do more. I think we can do a lot more in that area. So I'll be really interested to explore that on Wednesday. Right, I will finish. As I said, I'll make that presentation. I do apologise if the slides weren't flicking on and I can't see the slides because I'm not wearing my glasses. But it's important that I make those slides available to you because on Wednesday, as I said, we will have time for a lot of interactive Q&A on where the League needs to position this strategic plan. The board is very anxious for me to complete this task, but more importantly, not just produce a plan and having it sitting on the shelf. The board is holding me to account to implement it, and I will need your help. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, CEO John Black. As John mentioned there, delegates, you will have the opportunity to ask questions during the Wednesday morning session, and John will be convening that. I'd now ask the directors to head outside ahead of lunch. Delegates, if you'd remain seated for a moment while they do that, thank you very much. Well, that's news to everybody. I didn't have that. Thank you very much. I look forward to being out there in a moment to join you. So we will be having this lunch served by the directors of the board. Delegates and guests, we are going to break, as indicated, until 1:30 p.m. Today you will be served a barbecue lunch outside in the QE2 area. That's that grass square where you were earlier. Seating and some shade will be available. If you could ensure, please, that you're back in your seats here in the hall, ready for the arrival of Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, the Governor of New South Wales, by 1:30 p.m. And a reminder, during the break, to register your interest in that shuttle for Wednesday to transport you to either the airport or the railway station. And please, do take time to talk to the exhibitors here in the hall. See you at 1:30. Thank you.
111. Two, two, two. 3, 4, 4. 6, 6, 6. Rock on. Check, check, check. Number 5. 7, 7. 8, 8, 8.